Good morning everyone. Welcome to SST College of Arts and Commerce. This is SST Edupedia and my name is Amrita Chawla. Today we are going to cover the fourth module of vocational course of communication skills, which is telephone skills. Let's start. There are four basic things which we are going to cover today, starting with basic telephonic communication, followed by how to handle calls, telephonic manners, leaving message and greeting and taking leave over the phone. Making phone calls in English can seem tough, but it is actually easier than you think. We have telephonic conversations with our friends, family members all over the day, every day. However, when we have to talk in a language that we are not comfortable in, preferably in English, we seem to have a hard time. However, a caller perceives their first interaction with us on the basis of which they think of us and our company. And due to the lack of non-verbal communication which we rely heavily upon in person, it is very important to watch your P's while indulging in a telephonic conversation. You always have to be prepared, you have to be present, you have to be polite, you have to be patient, you have to be personable, professional and proactive while you are engaging in a telephonic conversation, specifically in English language. No matter what kind of job you are into, you will always need to be able to use English on the phone. So let us now take a few minutes to conquer the challenge of using the telephone in English with a few simple telephonic phrases and techniques. The first one is to always introduce yourself. English telephone conversations almost start in the same way, which is by introducing oneself or your company. Say hello, this is preferably your name, and let people know who you are. If you answer the phone and the caller does not give their name, you can say, may I know who is calling, or may I know who you are? Practice saying these simple phrases to help yourself feel confident at the start of any telephonic conversation, because that will make you take your conversation ahead in a very confident manner. Next up we have use polite questions with may and could. When you want to speak to a specific person, ask to speak to them with a polite question starting with may or could. For example, may I speak to Rachel Smith please? It sounds a lot more better than I want to speak to Rachel Smith. You do not want to sound authoritative or condescending, but you want to sound polite. Use polite questions when you are talking about the reason for your call also. Why have you called and why this call could not have been an email, WhatsApp text or any simple text for that matter. For example, if you are calling a hotel, you can say, could I talk to someone about booking a room, please? Always remember to add a please at the end of the sentence to make it very polite. Next we have holding and transferring the call. When people ask you to hold during a call, they just want you to wait for a while till they connect you with the people that you want to talk to. When they are ready to connect you to the person you want to speak to, they will use the word transfer or put you through to talk about connecting your call to that person. Do not confuse yourself because these phrases are not as difficult as they seem to be. For example, please hold. Okay, I'll put you through Rachel Smith. Now we come to leaving a message. There are two ways to leave a message when someone is not available to speak at the moment when you are. You can record a voicemail message or have someone write down your message for them. The technique is the same for both. Make sure to clearly state your name, the reason why you have called, and a number that you would like the person to call if you want them to call you back. Every native speakers to have asked people to repeat things sometimes, especially on the phone. For example, if you have called on a hotel number and you want to book a room, you could say that my name is Rachel Smith and I would like to book a hotel room and I would like to speak to this particular manager because I am friends with them. And that is how you take ahead the noting down or leaving a message for the person that you have called on. If at all there is a bad line or the sound is not clear, it is natural to ask the person on the other end to repeat what they have said. Don't be afraid to ask people to slow down by saying, sorry, I am having a little trouble hearing. Could you slow down a little bit? Or, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat it please? You should never be ashamed or afraid to ask people to repeat the information if you know that that information is important for you to have. Write it down. Anytime that you are in a conflict or you have no understanding, or if you do realize that you will be forgetting the information that the person on the other side of the telephonic line is giving you, it is always a good idea to write things down. When you are nervous, it is easy to forget what you wanted to say. Avoid this problem by making a note of the key points you wanted to cover in the telephone conversation. If there are any tricky words that you often forget, make a note of them so that you can feel confident about using them during the call. Next to any questions in your notes, leave a space for an answer so you can make a note of it while you are speaking and don't forget about it later. Always remember that most telephonic conversations use fairly simple language because more complex topics people generally prefer to have a meeting or put all of that information in mail. Always remember to never hold a telephonic conversation for something that is too important to discuss. Always leave a message or an email followed by the telephonic conversation. Start confidently. Remember your common telephone phrases. Have your notes ready and ask people to slow down, repeat if needed, and you will never need to be afraid of using the phone in English again. You know, as we talk on the phone less in our personal lives, with many people favoring text messages or WhatsApp text or emails, phone etiquettes often run the risk of slipping, especially among younger employees, which is why it is always a good idea to have an understanding of basic telephonic etiquettes, which are still very much needed for the success of the organization. The first one is to answer the phone quickly. Customers want to know that you care about them, and leaving the phone ringing conveys a lack of urgency or a lack of giving importance to the person on the other end of the line. It may even cause prospects to believe that customer service isn't a priority at your organization, which is why it is always a good idea to stick to your telephone table and ring it as soon as it rings. Introduce yourself. In this era of social media, it can be easy to assume that business contacts have checked you out on LinkedIn or your social media profiles, but it cannot always be true, which is why it is always a good idea to introduce yourself because the rules are different over the phone. Give your full attention. Just because you are hidden behind a telephone does not mean you can slack off. They might not be able to see you, but the person that you are speaking to will know if your attention is not fully on them. Set out the purpose of the call early on. Every time that you call, every single call that you make should always have a goal. And in order to meet that goal, both parties need to be on the same page from the beginning. There is no awkwardness in stating the point of the call early on as long as it is done right. For example, I have called you because these are the things that I want to discuss about. This way, you bring out all the things that you want to talk about in the initial stages of the telephonic call, which means there are no spaces or gaps in the conversation. Speak clearly. This might sound pretty obvious, but we are not as used to speaking on the telephone as we used to be. When your voice is your only mode of communication without facial expression or body language, it is very important that you speak clearly and at appropriate volume. Do not screech or do not talk at a very low volume. Ask before putting someone on hold or transferring their call. This is a simple courtesy that's all too often overlooked. Asking the person on the other end of the phone before you transfer them or put them on hold will go a long way to easing their user journey with you. Stay positive. Perhaps the trickiest one on the list. Staying positive is vital for those representing their company over the phone, even when they are dealing with complaints. It might be a little unnerving, but it is always a good idea to remain polite. Which brings us to the next point, which is to remain polite. As the old saying goes, manners cost absolutely nothing. With this, I would like to end this session here. Thank you very much.